Hello everyone, Phil Pravda here from suitcafe.com. Nice to see you all again. And this is a little something different on my YouTube channel. This is going to be a video of episode 3 of my podcast called It's All Been Done Before. You can listen to the podcast on my website, suitcafe.com, and you can also find it on all podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeart Radio, Spotify, and also a bunch of others. As wherever you find your usual podcast, I'm there. And this third episode is going to have a video component. You could also listen to the audio just by downloading the podcast. But we're going to introduce a new guest. His name is Boot Ferguson. Very interesting guy. And what is it that has all been done before for Boot? Well, Boot repairs guitars. And he took a small guitar repair shop, which obviously has been done before by many people in many places. But what he does now is he creates custom-made guitars out of old pianos. And he's got a very interesting story about the music industry, how guitars are made. And I think you're going to like it very much. So stay tuned right now to watch the third episode of It's All Been Done Before podcast. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. Back to have everybody here. This is the video version of the podcast that's all been done before. And right above me is my guest here. His name is Ramon Arreola Jr., and I know him as Boot, a.k.a. Boot. That's right. His name is B-O-O-T. We'll get into that a little later. And Boot hails from El Paso, Texas, and he has a very interesting and inspiring story. He's the owner of BA Ferguson Guitars, and he'll explain to us exactly what he does in that business. He became interested in guitars at a very young age, playing them, and in his teen years, he became enamored with repairing guitars after visiting a guitar repair shop. He had a guitar, somehow it got broken. He'll go into his story, I'm sure. And he loved the shop of the guitar repair shop. And eventually, after he left Texas with his wife, he opened a small guitar repair shop in a spare bedroom in his house in South Carolina. Now, many people love musical instruments, they love guitars, but not many people can turn their passion into a business, which Boot has done with his BA Ferguson Guitars. So what makes Boot different? What makes his business different? And that's the theme of this podcast, as it always has been. It's all been done before. Of course, you could probably find a guitar repair shop in any town in all of the whole United States, not alone where I am in New York or where Boot right now is in Texas. He just turned this whole thing into a business. And how did he do it? Well, not only does he repair guitars, but he now makes custom-made guitars back in his hometown of El Paso, Texas, with his wife and 5 kids. But he makes those guitars out of old pianos. He's been able to take one instrument that's being thrown away and make it a new instrument and a completely different instrument. So, Boot, how are you? And thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks, Phil. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it's actually, there's a short story really about how we met. And I think it all started with the Periscope app.
It did. Yeah.
The first live streaming app was Periscope, which is now part of Twitter.
Yeah.
And you saw me on Periscope, and that was a lot of years ago. That's like 2015, 2016.
Yeah, that was a really long time ago. Yeah. I was just browsing around looking for can't remember exactly. You must have been in like the featured feeds or whatever that they had at the beginning, and I must have picked it right. I don't know. But I loved watching you just walk around New York City, and showing what was going on. And
everybody loves New York City.
Yeah.
That's right. So you are a luthier. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
And I had no clue what that was. When you said to me, I'm a luthier, I had no idea what it was, and I had to Google it. So why don't you tell us exactly what that is?
A luthier is just someone who makes instruments. You could be making drums, you could be making violins, guitars, but essentially it's an instrument maker. Yeah.
So how did you get the idea? You obviously liked instruments and you learned how to play the guitar maybe at a fairly young age, but how did you get the idea to say, I'm just fixing guitars for people, but let me take apart a piano?
Well, that was an interesting story to all this, right? So I was in the middle of my apprenticeship with Barry Martin. He's the man who taught me, and I had always had the idea to make guitars at some point, probably this was early 2000s. And yeah, so I wanted to make guitars, and I talked back and forth about it to Barry, and just kind of hash out ideas, right? And that's how I came up with the name BA Ferguson. It was actually just Ferguson at the time, and it sounded like a name that you've heard before, right? Like, I didn't want to use my name because it was hard enough to pronounce for folks anyway. So I was like, it's got to be something that's easier to pronounce, and Ferguson was just the right thing. I added BA later for Boot Areola, to make sure that my name was actually in there. But yeah, we were just hashing around ideas, and that was one of the ideas. And then the other one was, I thought I was going to stay in El Paso, and there's not a lot of there are a lot of trees, just not as much as everywhere else, right? Because it's the desert, it's the high desert here. Um, so we were in the middle of fixing a bunch of old instruments and a bunch of new instruments, and the thing we realized about the newer instruments is that they would crack a lot because as the industry progressed, they're using a lot more greener woods, letting you know that, well, you've got to really keep things properly humidified, and that's kind of a half truth. Like, yes, you do have to keep things humidified, however, you also have to make sure the wood is dry and stable and all that. And so I kept bouncing around the idea of, like, how do I come up with really stable guitars when there's an industry at large that doesn't really, it's too much in a hurry, and it keeps force drying wood and then putting it out there for people to use, and then people use it, and then it twists and turns and cracks and all this stuff. And so I was really racking my brain about that. And Barry just simply goes, "You just need to make them out of old pianos." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, I don't get it. Why, And he's like, "Well, because it's old wood. It was really old by the time they made guitars out of it, and there's a bunch of people throwing those things away because it's not worth fixing them." And so the idea really came from him, and but it made perfect sense. And I took the idea with me to South Carolina, and it turns out that there's a bunch of people out there that have these old pianos, and a lot of them have stories too, which is really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much how the idea came about.
So it was really just a simple idea that just came out of thin air, pretty much.
Pretty
Wasn't
much. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and,
So
and the idea too was that, it's a way to recycle too, it's a way
right.
so yeah.
And you're keeping it in the same family, a musical instrument
Mm-hmm.
into another musical instrument, as opposed to taking the piano and making a table
Yeah.
out of
Mm-hmm.
it. So
Yeah.
is there something about, besides the dryness or the stability of that piano wood, that allows it to be better for a musical instrument in terms of the sound of the instrument? Does that wood have anything to do with the sound? And
It
what type of
does.
woods are pianos made of that you can
Sure.
make a
Yeah.
guitar out of it?
Well, it really depends. Throughout history, guitars have been made out of just about everything, right? In the 60s and 50s and 60s, you had these student model guitars, that you could get in the Sears catalog, Montgomery Wards, and most of those were made out of poplar. And nowadays, those are collectible instruments. Who would have thought, all these student model guitars that were pretty cheap back then are now collectible and selling for, anywhere between, close to $1,000 and above, um but yeah, so there's kind of and nowadays there's kind of a little bit of a snake oil salesman thing going on with what woods to use, the quality and all that stuff. And but it's really up to the builder, right, to really look at the wood, inspect the wood, and go, okay, what's going to fly, what's not, right? And you're mainly looking at how the piece of wood grew. You're looking at the grain structure, using a lot of quarter sawn woods for, or rift sawn for the necks and fretboards, things like that. Because when you have a quarter sawn piece of wood, which means that the grain sort of stands on end, and I'll show you here. I've got a neck I'm working on.
Mhm.
It's hard to see with this camera here,
Right.
but essentially the grain runs this way,
Sure.
perpendicular like that. And that gives it a lot more strength as far as,
Right. As opposed to
as
the
the,
other way.
yeah. If you have it the other way, then you're going to have a lot
Could
more
split.
flex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many pieces is a guitar just as I guess that's for an electric guitar, or it doesn't
It
matter
is.
that kind of neck. So how many pieces is a guitar actually? Is just the neck and then the body part, or are there more pieces to it than that?
Sure. Yeah. So yes. So yeah, for the electric guitar, you're looking at usually a solid slab of wood, and you've got a lot of electrical components, right?
Right.
And the neck is made from, you've got the base blank to it, and then you've got the fretboard, you've got a truss rod, you've got frets, and then you've got some other parts, but essentially it is two pieces. You're making the box, what we call the box with acoustic guitar terms, and then you've got the neck, and how you put them together is where a lot of the magic happens, so to speak. Yeah.
So are you a one-man business, or you have a shop where you have a few people helping out working on the different guitars? And do you still do guitar repair?
So I'm a one person operation right now. I do have a friend of mine that comes and helps me a couple of days during the week. But yeah, I'm the only one here. I'm working out of my home, and I did go from having a fully loaded shop in South Carolina where we did retail repairs, we did lessons, we ran sound for special events in the city, and then I built guitars. And so there's 4 guys working with me at that time. And but yeah, kind of, I was spread real thin. It was a whole lot to do. I wasn't enjoying it. It was taxing on my family and taxing on my own mental health and all that stuff. So I kind of decided to take several steps back in order to take steps forward later. And so and that was to solely focus on guitar building. So right now I don't do repairs anymore. I will take some on from time to time here and there because people do ask, but I'm very careful how many of those I take on, because the repair stuff can take over very quickly and very easily. And I've got orders into next year that I've got to have made. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So you were able to take the business you started in South Carolina, which also involved using the old pianos.
Sure, yeah.
And then you were able to take that really halfway across the country and really start over. Because I don't think the customers from South Carolina, although they could order
Sure, yeah.
in Texas, but how many of those customers that you had followed you, let's say, across the country? And then how many, and then you had to promote yourself in your new place.
Yeah. Well, that was the interesting part, as far as building guitars and making and repairing them as well, is I did have a decent, I do have, it's not a huge following on the internet, but I do have a following on the internet. And so, by the time I left, I was still getting online orders. The majority of the hand-built guitars customers were usually from the internet. So those came with me, and then maybe a handful of the South Carolina customers came with me as well. Not too many, but yeah. So there wasn't too much of an interruption as far as the customer base for BA Ferguson. For my repair side of things, yeah, that was a huge,
Because for that, you need people face to face. That can't
yeah.
be. I mean, people could ship you a broken guitar, but then you have shipping costs. You got to ship it
Yeah.
back. That would be a big thing.
Yeah. And some people have shipped me stuff to repair, especially when I first got here, and so that was really neat. But yeah, so that definitely changed some things.
So when someone's going to, like, if I'm like, I don't know anything about guitars, but if I were to go buy a guitar, I would find probably a guitar shop someplace. And I would look at the guitars. And I would probably, of course, everyone searches the internet and does their research these days. And you'd probably see some of the main names that might come up, like, Fender or a few of them escape my mind, but
Sure.
there's the other one that's the big one, Gibson, Fender, and there's a few other. What Epiphone is another one.
Yeah, Epiphone's owned by Gibson. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it's owned by Gibson.
Ibanez and
Yeah. So
yeah,
you hear these names that are usually thrown around when it comes to electric guitars.
yeah.
And and of course, when someone's looking for a guitar, they're actually, besides what it's going to sound like and what kind of music they're going to play, are they actually looking for the type of woods that these guitars are made out of?
Not necessarily. I think the aspect of being responsible, as far as sourcing the wood responsibly, is becoming really important to people. Because from the get-go, that was important to me. Of course, that came with the fear of at that time most people thinking that, oh, you're using reclaimed woods because you can't find good wood, so you're just using cheap woods. That's the excuse, right?
Oh, they thought you're being cheap.
Yeah. And to a certain degree, I kind of was in a way, right? I didn't have cash flow to get wood, but it took a lot of labor and time. It actually took more time than it was really worth to take apart these pianos
And refinish it.
and take, process the wood, because it's
Right.
not like you can't just take a sledgehammer to the things and break it apart, because then you don't have any usable wood. You have to take apart the strings one by one, careful not to have them snap in your face, and take that big old there's a big cast iron harp in there that you've got to carefully take out, and
Yeah, inside the piano, sure.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a lot of work,
Isn't
but
that why people buy an old house? They walk into an old house
mhm,
and the floor is all wood and it's all scratched up and worn
yeah,
out. But they love that because you could easily
mhm,
sand that down and you can
yeah,
make a brand new finish, and the floor looks brand new.
yeah, and you can still refinish it and then keep some of the patina and all that stuff.
Right.
And but yeah, I know when people look for my stuff, it was funny because I've got two music stores that carry. Well, there's several music stores right now that carry my guitars, but two in particular that seem to really sell them right away.
So you do
And
also, you show your guitars not only taking orders from individuals, but you're selling in retail stores. You're selling
yes, mhm,
wholesale accounts to retail stores.
yes,
Oh, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And so with those stores, it's I always tell people, like, I'm the worst salesman. Like I'm not a super business kind of guy.
Well, that's your thing, is creative side. You create the
Yeah.
guitar
hmm
that it
and
sounds correctly and you know all the components, and
hmm and then through necessity, right, you kind of have to become the business guy. So
of
I've
course.
done it, yeah. And but
Well,
when I
that's the
picked up,
entrepreneur. That's
yeah,
living the American dream of the entrepreneur.
yeah,
You're making your own product, selling it yourself. You have to do everything yourself.
yeah, exactly,
If
yeah,
the bathroom is dirty, there's no one to clean it. You have to go clean the bathroom.
yeah,
Like when
exactly.
I had retail stores, you have to do. I worked on the floor with the salesman,
hmm
and if the mirror was dirty, so you got some Windex and you clean the mirror. You
yeah,
just do it. So
yeah. And so yeah, when I picked up these two dealers, they they sold through their guitars,
that's great.
very quickly. Yeah. And I was kind of like, you know what, like, what are you doing different? I had to ask one of them. I was like, you guys must be really good salespeople, because I always have trouble selling my own guitars, unless I'm at a trade show and people are getting to pick up the guitar and feel it. And usually that kind of sells the guitar by itself a little bit, but
Sure.
what are you guys doing? Because people are buying from them off the internet, sight
Hmm.
unseen, except for the pictures on their website, and they're selling them. And so, and the one guy told me, I think it's because of your internet presence. I honestly think, because we haven't really done anything to sell the guitars other than list them on the appropriate
Right.
websites,
So
and so
they must have some good traffic on their websites for
they have,
guitars.
yeah.
People see your brand, and then
hmm
they're probably Googling your brand, and then they're
Sure,
finding you
sure, yeah,
on Instagram and YouTube and seeing you as the person who makes it.
yeah,
And then they say, hey, that's the name of the guitar. That's the guy. He made the
mhm,
guitar in his own shop. That's the
yeah,
kind of person that I want to do business with.
sure, yeah,
That's the kind of product I want to own, because he takes so much pride in making it's his own name stamped on the guitar.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's what it is. It's yeah, the internet's been very helpful in that. And I've made it a point to try to be
And it's made in USA. You got to
yeah,
add that. It's
exactly,
made in the
yeah,
United States.
exactly, yeah. So yeah, I've tried my best to be as forthcoming and honest
Mhm.
as I could be. There were times in the early days, especially before Periscope, where the idea, especially when I did my first trade show that I like failed at miserably,
Mhm.
was that the whole like fake it till you make it, right? Like, and so the idea there was like, well, maybe because it's got that Ferguson name, sounds like something that's been around. Maybe I should give people the impression that it's been around for a while, and maybe they'll buy it because of that, right? And of course that didn't happen,
Right.
because as soon as back then my work wasn't as good, but um I don't know. It's just I learned very quickly, and there's people that were people that were really bad about that unfortunately fell through the cracks, but um it never felt honest, and never, I just, there was something not right about trying to portray it as something that it's not, right? And when Periscope came along, and I used to do live streams on other platforms
Yeah.
as well.
Uh-huh. I remember
Periscope
you
was
used to
the
do
first
some
one.
live streams on Periscope.
Yeah, the Periscope live streams were the ones that were like, whoa, like this, it's so easy to use, and there's no algorithm to it, and it's just, um, and it gave me a chance to really just open up about, this is what it really is. It's not a factory full of people. Uh, it really is just us, like, the very, at that time, because I had the other guys working for me, it's just like, it really is just us trying to juggle and balance all these things. And I don't know, I think just honesty is key, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why people wanted to buy. They saw you in the
Yeah.
shop. They saw your hands touching the wood, your hands
Mhm.
cutting the wood,
Yeah.
you sanding it down. They
Yeah.
saw the
They
raw
saw me messing
product.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, the raw product with just the holes in it or drilling holes. And
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
showed them a final product. I'm sure you did videos. You showed the guitar. I remember seeing a video of a band playing with your guitars. I think you did it a
Oh,
long
yeah.
time ago. There was a band playing, with
Yeah.
the guitars. So you mentioned that you go
Yeah.
to trade shows. So
Yeah.
are these trade shows? Because when I go to a trade show for clothing, there aren't any consumers there.
Sure.
A consumer can't show up and say, "Oh, I like that suit or that tie, and let me buy that one, or send me those two jackets." It's only a
Yeah.
trade show for people who have stores or clothing businesses, and you're buying it for your business, and then you're ultimately going to sell to the consumer.
Sure. Yeah.
So the type of trade shows you go to, are they different? They have stores walking around looking for new product and consumers walking around?
Yeah, the ones I did were specifically the National Association of Music Merchants, or is it North American? Yeah, no, National Association of Music,
Mm-hmm.
NAMM for short.
Right.
And that it's a little bit different, where they allow both music stores and consumers and artists, actual artists,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a mix of people. And yeah, and you're there to, for me it was about networking, right?
Right.
And just sort of making friends in the industry and having a good time, because if I focused on trying to pick up a dealer and
Yeah.
trying to get business, then that's when I would kind of overdo it, and I'd stress other people out around me,
Right.
and then it just was no fun, and then no one wanted to buy any of my guitars. So when I made the conscious decision to just
Go with the flow,
relax
see
and
what
hang out,
happens.
yeah, exactly.
So you have a
And
booth and you show your guitars and you have
mhm,
maybe some information about the guitars there.
yeah,
And can
yeah,
people play them at the show and they could pick it up and
they
listen
can,
to the
yeah,
sound and
they can handle them, yeah, look all
right.
over them, plug it into an amp, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now the different guitars you make, I don't know any difference. I see an electric guitar. I think, oh, it's
Sure.
I know that the little boxes you connect to the guitars can make
Yeah,
them
the
sound
pedals.
differently, the
Hmm.
pedals. But inherently, does each guitar have its own different sound?
Yeah, yeah. Even from guitar to guitar, there's variations. Some people hear them more than others, and Yeah, and that's a whole other
Mhm.
whole other
It's a
ball
whole other
game.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Because we could get into,
I'm sure.
opinions on what type of woods
I'm
sound
sure. I'm
different, and
sure. And then
then
we'll
you
get all
got
kind of
the
comments, people agreeing, disagreeing. It'll
yeah,
be,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm
But yeah,
sure.
no,
Like,
it's yeah, people can tell the difference, and there's a stylistic difference, right? And a playability difference and a tonal difference between the different brands of guitars, which is really neat to see,
mhm.
because you end up meeting other guitar makers that share some of the same philosophies, and then you become friends, and then you play on their guitars, and then you go like, whoa, this is a different, I didn't think of this, this is really
Right.
cool what you're doing here. And so that's a really fun aspect.
So
But
does
yeah.
the shape of the body of the guitar have any bearing on its sound, the electric guitar? Because sometimes you see some that are, like you would say, like a punk rock band would use, like Cheap
Mhm.
Trick, and
Sure,
those
yeah.
have a particular sound. And then you
Mhm.
see someone playing a guitar like Eric Clapton, and he
Mhm.
has that bluesy sound.
Yeah.
So the shapes are different and the sound is different, or is it just totally about the pedals that they're connecting to it?
No, it's there's a lot of variables. Yeah. And so like in an Eric Clapton guitar, you're usually looking at, I think he's got a signature Strat, and he also plays a Les Paul, and they
He
both
plays a
have different.
Stratocaster.
Yeah.
Now, is
And
that now? I don't know. Stratocaster is made by a particular brand, or that's the brand itself?
no, Stratocasters are usually made by Fender.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's Fender, the Fender Stratocaster.
that's a proprietary Fender
Yeah,
design, and other people will make clones of that as well.
right.
But there's some differences in how those are put together compared to, say, a Les Paul.
Sure.
You've got the way the neck is glued in on a Les
Hmm.
Paul. Um, the neck on a Stratocaster is bolted in, and that gives it a different feel altogether. And
Right.
some people will say, well, it also gives it a different sound, and there's varying thoughts on that as well. But and then you have the pickups, the electronic components that
Hmm.
also. But essentially, you could make a Strat that's shaped like an elephant, right?
Right.
Like the body's shaped like an elephant,
Yeah.
and it's still going to sound like a Strat because of the
Okay.
pickups and the way that
Yeah.
the neck is bolted in. And same with Les Paul style
Mhm.
guitars. Usually, it's a short scale length, shorter scale length on the neck, which is just basically the distance between the nut and the saddle,
Mhm.
um, and the way the frets are placed. And so that's going to give it a slightly different sound. And then you put two humbuckers in there, and those are different pickups. Um, and yeah. So there's a lot of, and but you could take that same, the same principles of a Les Paul and make the body shape whatever, as long as it's a solid body, and it's going to sound like a Les Paul
Right.
still.
Now, Les
Um,
Paul was the first electric guitar maker.
no, it was actually that has been credited, as far as the very first electric guitar, um, can be credited to Rickenbacker,
Hmm.
um, which is way before, and it is because he made it was a cast iron lap steel guitar, and it had a magnet, a
How heavy
pickup.
was that?
Yeah, it was really heavy. Yeah, they call it the frying pan. Yeah,
Oh, really? Right.
yeah. But there might be some others we don't
Hmm.
know. Some things are
Sure.
kind of lost to history. So, but the earliest that can be
Hmm.
found and documented
Right.
right now is Rickenbacker. Yeah.
So from the time you see an old piano or get your hands on a piano
Mhm.
or some wood that would be good for one of your guitars, how long does it
Yeah.
take you to do the work for the wood
Mhm.
and have the finished product of the guitar?
It depends.
So if I were to place an order today,
Yeah,
I see on your website, oh, I like that guitar.
sure.
And you say,
Yeah.
sure, but I don't have it. I have to make it for you.
Yeah.
How long am I waiting for that?
Well, if I didn't have any orders in front of it and I had nothing else,
Yeah,
right?
sure. If you could just
I
start
could,
right
I could,
away.
yeah, I
Yeah.
could probably do it in about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's not so bad.
Uninterrupted and all
Right.
that stuff. Yeah, there's some steps where you got to let it sit and see how it moves,
Hmm.
especially when you're dealing with the neck. The neck is the hardest part.
Right, because
But
it could twist. The wood can twist. It could warp
yeah, and you've got
because
to
of the
make
length.
adjustments. Yeah, the length, and also every time you do something to it, every time you glue it up, you're reintroducing moisture to it, so it's going to want to move slightly, and then you've got to make adjustments so that once you get it onto the body, it's right. Um, so yeah, a lot of steps in there, but yeah, in a hurry, maybe, I could do it in about a week. Otherwise, yeah, usually about 2 weeks worth of time into one guitar.
It's not so bad.
It's not so bad. Yeah. Right now I do everything in batches of about 8 to 10 guitars per batch. And they take me about 2 months a batch, something like that. And yeah, and it depends on the guitar. So I have 3 tiers, 3 levels,
Right.
price levels. And
what constitutes the price of, why would one also be more expensive than another?
For me, there's a lot of different reasons for other manufacturers, but for me, it's how economically I can put it together, right? So I have the Flyweight series, which is the base line. Then there's the standard.
It's a good name, Flyweight. I like that name.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that.
That's actually my buddy Nick Greer came up with that. He's the guy from Greer Amps.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, this makes amps and pedals.
Right.
Good friend of mine. But anyway, he gave me the idea for the Flyweight, and then I have the standard line, which is in the middle, and then the deluxe, which is the ultra customizable. We can do a lot of different things.
Right.
And I do that both in acoustic and electric. And with the Flyweight, the idea was to sort of emulate the 1960s student model guitars, like the old Silvertones and Gibson Melody Makers. With those, you end up having a very thin piece of poplar, like I talked about.
Nice, yeah.
And it's very, very thin, making it very light. And the way they manufactured those was sort of, all the routes and the shapes and everything, that they're pretty much standardized, right? Everything was standardized so they could get it out quicker.
So you can make a few shapes at a time.
Yeah. And I made it so that I'm doing 3 different shapes right now, but 2 of those 3, these routes are exactly the same. This route,
right,
this route. So if you look at that, and then you look at the Shirley, this is my flagship model. Put this one down here without putting any things in it. You see that those shapes are the same, right?
Yes.
And they'll remain the same way that no matter what, because what this allows me to do is this allows me to put in electronics that have the same footprint every single time, no matter what. So you can get different kinds of pickups, but as long as I get the footprint exactly the same, that shape, yeah, then I can route every single body exactly the same and get them out quicker. So I'm saving time,
right?
And in that way, I'm passing on the savings. Those guitars retail starting at $1,299, and then they go up to closer to $1,500, depending on the type of pickups and things like that.
So is that your opening price, the $1,299?
It is, yeah. And,
right.
and it's the price that we kind of felt like, musicians wouldn't have a problem taking a chance on, because if they didn't like it, then they can turn around and sell it on reverb.com or eBay and make at least most of their money back. Right.
Right. And how does that compare to the brands that people see in stores?
They're comparable. They're comparable as far as, maybe the import models that are around that same price range. Well, they're better than the import models, obviously, but they have some import models that are about at that price range that are not as great.
Import meaning China or Mexico?
Well, China, Indonesia, there's a couple of different places. Yeah.
So where are guitars? I mean, are there any companies left that make guitars in the States? There must be a few.
There's several. Yeah. I mean, and there's several small folks that do what I do as well.
Independent shops.
Yeah. There's Novo Guitars, Cower.
Right.
All folks that I'm friends with, or at least acquainted with.
Sure. Everybody knows who's doing what.
Yeah. Elliott Guitars. Yeah, there's several, and then with the standard line, you start getting a little bit more customization options. Different woods. We're using mahogany for both the body and the neck.
Right.
The difference between my student models and the 60s is that the neck isn't made out of poplar, it's made out of mahogany. You've got better pickups, plays better, all that stuff.
Sure. Well, you
And
have to have
standard.
different price points for different people.
Yeah, exactly.
So someone who's a pro musician and plays in a band or in a recording studio, like a session musician,
Mhm.
they might want your. So what is the top end? Like someone wants the top of the line guitar.
Mhm.
What does it go up to, the price?
For me,
For you, yeah, for you.
yeah, for me, probably around $3,500 to
Right,
$4,000, something like that. Yeah,
right.
yeah, and
So
that's
so it's just like even like photography gear. You have cameras that are the opening price. People don't really know what they're doing. They're trying it out, want to learn. And then people who are the pros who spend 4, 5, 6 grand on a camera because they really know what they're doing and they
yeah,
need
yeah,
all the functionality
yeah.
of that
Well,
piece
and
of gear.
yeah, and that's the thing also with musicians is that their job is to play music, right? And so
Sure,
they
sure.
want some good tools that they can also feel like they don't have to worry if it gets banged up. And this is a pretty solid guitar.
Mhm.
The For example, the guitar player from I can't the band Walk the Moon. They did that song "Shut Up and Dance with Me," that one. So the guitar player from that band bought a Flyweight. He
Uh-huh.
didn't call and ask for any sponsorship or anything like
Right,
that. He just bought one straight outright from one of my dealers, and he uses it on stage.
right.
Same with another band called the Revivalists.
Hmm.
Um, he plays a Flyweight as well as one of the deluxe versions, and so part of the deal there is the fact that these are sort of more raw rock and roll machines, and yeah, they don't have to worry about them getting banged up. They hold tune well and all that stuff, and there's a little bit of nostalgia to it as well because it reminds them of those old school student
Right.
model guitars that had razor blade frets on them that you couldn't play.
Early days when they were learning.
Yeah, except these feel nice. It's like,
Right.
what they should have felt like. All right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. In fact, I've got one of those right here with me. This is an old Tysco
Hmm.
TG130. It's got tape all over it because I'm holding some things in place right now, but I've
Right.
been slowly restoring this one for myself.
Nice.
And yeah, and sure enough, you feel the edges of the frets, and
Hmm.
oh man, they're all sticking out and they're
Oh,
all
they're all
sharp.
sticking out on the edges, so you feel the
Yeah.
sharpness of the metal there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the idea with that was, what if that played really nicely from the
Right.
get-go,
That's a very good
and
idea. It's an
yeah,
excellent idea.
yeah. So
So
anyway.
how do you decide when you make a guitar? I always see there's different colors, and some people say, "Oh, that's a specific, like a sunburst color." How do you decide what color to make it when you're finishing it, or
Well,
is it
at
just,
first,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, right now it's mainly just at first when I came out with a Flyweight, for example, I limited um the choices to 3 colors, right?
hmm,
Because one thing I learned very early on when I did my first uh, trade show was that at any given time you can give customers um, what they call option fatigue, right?
right?
Or
Too
or
many
option
choices.
paralysis. Yes,
Too
yes.
many choices.
Yeah, exactly. So when
Yeah.
I did my first trade show, we brought about 12 different guitars and they were all different. They were all over the place. There was no um, one was my variation of a Telecaster, and then I brought this one. This is my variation of a Strat.
Hmm.
It's an old guitar now, but um, and yeah, and so I had to establish some sort of brand recognition by dwindling it down to one body shape. But as far as the colors are concerned, when I did the Flyweight, I limited the choices to just 3 colors, and it was black, red, and blue. That's it.
Right.
And people bought them and they loved it. And I told everyone it's just for the sake of time, right? I've got to be able to be quick in painting these
Sure.
because they
Is
have a
it paint?
cabinet grade.
Is it lacquer? Is it
It's lacquer.
resin? It's lacquer.
Uh-huh. And I've got to be able to paint these very quick because it's a cabinet grade finish that's on there. It's not the full on polished,
Hmm.
wet, sanded, buffed,
Right.
and type finish. But then people like those so much, they started asking for other colors. And so I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can start doing different colors now, because people are asking specifically. They're not asking me to come up with a color. They're just saying, can you do this color, and showing me a picture, and then
you can match it.
Yeah. Yeah. So mainly it's the customers making the decisions,
Right.
which I really enjoy, because then it kind of challenges me a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of people are asking for colors that they've already seen on classic guitars.
Classic. They're looking at the colors like from the 60s. They see a Stratocaster color. They're watching YouTube videos of the old bands like Led Zeppelin, and they see
they want TV yellow. The Mary Kay White, and
or the Stones or something, and they're looking at those colors of the guitars. So what ratio now did you do custom orders and you're selling to some stores?
Sure.
What ratio are you selling between privates and retail? Wholesale rather.
Yeah. I will say, let's see, I'm looking at my batch board now. It's probably a good, I don't know, 60-40, and it can go either way. Usually it's more dealers now, but yeah, it fluctuates between 60 and 40%.
That's a nice ratio to have.
Yeah.
Because you could really expand either one of those.
Sure. Yeah.
You really can. So what would you feel? Is there any comparison to your guitar in terms of the sound, that is, to any of the other known brands like Gibson? Or you don't really compare guitars, or guitars aren't compared that way. It's more of price and the sound you're looking for.
Yeah. They can be compared that way as far as sound is concerned. And again, that's mainly due to pickups, right?
So it's all about the pickups, really.
It's in electrics. Yeah, a lot of it is. The wood will contribute a little bit to the sound, but also to the feel of the instrument.
Right.
And a lot of folks, especially with these flyweights, will tell me that it reminds them of, something in the territory of like an SG or an Epiphone Coronet or a Les Paul Jr. That I keep hearing those terms kind of thrown around a little bit.
So you feel like the sales of the Flyweight is better online because of the more reachable price point for more people, as opposed to people feeling nostalgic? That's something that they had when they were younger.
Sure. Yeah. I think that definitely helps. The price point is a definite.
Because I find with suits, the lower priced suits, which are still nice quality, no question, but more people go for those because you're buying on the internet and you're never 100% sure. They could read about you and read about the website and watch your videos and have confidence and all those things, but you can't feel the fabric, and just like they can't hold the guitar. So the guitar might even be easier to sell because it's a guitar, it's depending on your pickups, I guess, and depending on the pedals, what it's going to really sound like.
Yeah. It's a good entry point, or I don't know, a gateway, sort of, so to speak, to the other stuff,
Yeah, sure. And then once you get the customer, do you sell any other items besides guitars? Do you sell separate pickups or separate pedals or amps, or did you get into any of that business?
No, I used to back when I was in South Carolina, but now I just stick to the guitar stuff. I might do some. I'm actually getting ready to launch some. What is it, like swag packs, right? Online on my Shopify site.
You mean merch?
Basically, just
merch?
just merch. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Nothing wrong with merch.
Yeah, just stickers and things like that. Yeah.
A couple of hoodies and some hats and trucker hats. Or replacement pick guards, things like that. Right.
That people can put on a Flyweight, if they want some.
So replacement parts for your own guitars that it's on there already, and some people could do the work on their own. And then they could buy the parts parts from you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that way people can do their own work if they want.
So do all of your kids play guitar?
No, they all want one. They all want one,
but they're not all playing.
Yeah. My I'm because I have hanging up here in the well, not in the rafters, but I have one guitar that I've been working on for my son. We just he wanted to build one, and so I started building him one, and it's taking forever, but
well, you have customers first, I guess, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so my oldest daughter plays guitar and piano.
Oh, nice.
She plays the drums a little bit as well, and yeah, she's a great songwriter. Gosh, she goes under the name Loney, Loni right now,
Right.
Loney. And she's got a couple of songs on iTunes. They're great, and I helped her record them because I used to
Wow.
do a bunch of recording, and at one point in time she asked me to play drums on some of her songs, but she's the one that's gone the farthest with playing. My second oldest daughter, she played the violin for a little while. She hasn't played in a while, but she's shown some interest, and so have my other kids altogether. At the same time, I'm not one to want to sort of, I don't know, I want them to do it on their own, because I feel like I can very easily make them hate music, because
are any of them interested in what you do, the building and the repairing of the guitars? Do they watch it? Do they see you do the work? Do they pay attention to it?
They have a little bit, when they were much smaller. I think there was a lot more mystique to some of it, but I think by now they're all kind of over it,
Right.
They're just kind
well, you said you have a couple of kids in their teens now, right?
Yeah.
So are they not like with all their friends? Oh yeah, my father makes electric guitars. You got to hear this one. You got to
no
come see a session.
Yeah. No, to them they're just so used to it that they're just like, yeah, how kids
Don't worry,
are.
soon they'll have a couple of friends who know how to play, and they'll say, "You got to come to my house and play this guitar."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they might be too embarrassed to bring their friends around their parents more.
Well, that happens
more
too.
Likely.
That happens too.
Yeah.
They just want to be around the friends.
Yeah, that definitely happens to my oldest. She kind of gets embarrassed.
No parents allowed.
Yeah.
Drop me off at school down the block. I'll walk the rest of the way.
Right? Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That always happens.
Yeah. But yeah, no, as far as like a successor or anything like that, I'm not sure.
Not sure yet. They're too young.
Yeah, they're too young. If they ever did, I don't know. I kind of go both ways in my head. I kind of go, well, yeah, I could teach them, but then I might make them hate it. Hopefully I don't, but then, because I am a perfectionist, and when it comes to some things, because I'm a little bit set in my ways with making stuff. The other thing is that
well, maybe they'll see in the future, they'll see it a little different way. You saw making with the piano parts, and they'll see something a little different, maybe you never know.
Yeah.
Never know how they'll do it.
And I think the thing that sort of concerns me, right, is what a struggle it was to get to this point, and barely scratching by, especially when we started over. There's a level of, well, now I've got to kind of work my way back up, and we're still not quite there. We'll get there eventually, but
look, anything worthwhile is a struggle. It always is. Exactly. Nothing is easy. I don't care what the business is. If it's worthwhile, it's going to be a struggle. Eventually, hopefully you get there, but
But yeah, with my kids, I'd rather them struggle at something that they really like.
Yeah, sure. They have to like it.
Yeah. So if they end up showing that they really like this, then I'll but until then, I'm just, and I see them doing their own thing. They have their own talents. My youngest daughter is just so good with art in general. She's just always drawing. And so I'm like, man, just keep rolling with that.
Well, it's the overall picture is creativity, being creative, being an artist, building guitars and art, definitely an art.
Yeah.
So it's all creative, and they see that in the house, so they pick that up.
Yeah.
Whether it's a drawing or playing guitar, piano, violin, whatever it might be. So what about acoustic guitars? You make some acoustic guitars too, right?
I do. Yeah. And that's my favorite thing to make, because it's the most challenging. There's a lot more variables to it, and
because that wood really has a bend, the curves in the wood, and
yeah, you've got to bend that with heat and steam and pressure and all that stuff, and that's not even the hardest part. It is fairly hard, but the whole the engineering of the box itself. You've got to have the top so thin that it's almost to its breaking point, and then you've got to reinforce it with braces and then have those almost to their breaking point, right? Like in order to get a good sound,
Right.
you've
And
got
that's
to,
what's making the sound. There's no electronics in there.
yeah, exactly. So it's the art form of building something that's close to its breaking point in order for
Very
it to sound
interesting.
good. Yeah. So yeah, it's and there's different schools of thought on that too, because there's some people that build acoustics and they really beef up the structural stability to it, and they say, oh well, now it's really sustained, and they build it like a piano, and everyone's got a different ear. Tone is subjective, and some
Right.
people say, yeah, this sounds great. Sometimes I'll say, well, that sounds really thin to me because nothing's vibrating, everything's too strong, and so yeah. Yeah, it's an
So
art
did you
form.
ever just send off a guitar to some like really well-known artist and say, here, try my guitar out?
I haven't, no. And I've thought about doing that several times. My friend Nick Greer over at Greer Amps
Right.
has been a really good friend and a sort of a veteran in this music industry business and all that stuff. And he's always, anytime I start talking about that, he always advises against it. And he
Oh, don't
goes,
send something.
yeah. Because he knows a lot of these folks,
Right.
and he's always worked out that, hey, no one gets anything for free. If they get something at a discount or whatever, it's because, they'll get it at a discount. They're still paying, but they can use their platform to sort of help my business.
Right.
And so
Well,
it's kind of a give
there
and
is something
take.
said for that, of course. There
Yeah,
is.
it's give and take. And
Yeah.
but to send a guitar straight to somebody, he's sort of warned me that, like, well, first of all, they didn't ask for it.
Right.
Second of all, they've got plenty of people just sending them
Sending
free
them
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. And so then you've got a bunch of other things to compete with. Instead, wait for them to come to you.
Yeah.
Um, and because then at least at that point,
Then you
then
can charge them.
yeah, exactly. Well, and they have more of an appreciation for it
Right.
too, 'cause they
Right.
sought you out.
That's right. They're searching you out.
Yeah, and that was the case with Zach Feinberg of the Revivalist, who, by the way, is from New York City
Oh,
and
okay.
lives in Louisiana now,
Right.
New Orleans. But he sought me out and sent me emails, and we talked for a little while over email. And finally, he invited us to a show for his band. And gosh, he's just super nice, down to earth guy. Got to see them play and everything. And when we told him, well, this is what the price is for this guitar, but here's your discount and all this stuff, he was very kind and very
Mhm.
just like, he wasn't expecting anything for free.
Right.
He
So
just,
he was very appreciative that you gave a
yeah,
little
yeah,
discount, and you'll make him a nice guitar.
yeah. So in that case, he was just like, okay, I'm writing it down on my list. And I've got a list of things that I'm saving up for, because even as a working musician, like
Right.
he's
Sure.
he's having to save up for his tools.
Right.
And so he's like, okay, I've got you on my list. As soon as I have my down
hmm
payment, I'm going to call you and we're going to get this going. And I said, okay. And I remember having the conversation with my good buddy Brian, who has since passed, having the conversation of like, dang it, man, that was just such an amazing experience. Like, I almost just want to give him the darn thing. So we plotted right then to, well, I think this is the one that could work out, that if we, in good faith, just made it for him and sent it to him, then he would totally rep it and
Right.
play it out. And sure enough, that's what we did.
Oh, wow.
And
Great.
the first chance he got to, he played on the Stephen Colbert show.
Oh, wow.
I think there's a Good Morning America show or something like, no, what was it? I can't remember. And then played it on Austin City Limits,
Uh-huh.
and that was just mind blowing to me. And we continue to talk to this day. It's a very, I don't know, I feel like I made a friend,
Yeah, good.
through that. So, and I think that's, to me, that's the more important part, right? Just making friends and
Of
just
course. You become friends
saying,
over time with your customers
yeah,
at some point. You
yeah,
make a nice
exactly.
rapport with them, and they know you're
Yeah,
genuine, and they want to always come back to you.
yeah, exactly. So that's the one that really,
Yeah.
we took a chance on that, and it worked out well.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
good.
think that sort of thing will will happen very easily again, because
Yeah, we'll never know. You never
yeah,
know where it
yeah,
comes from.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, at this rate though, it's like what I normally tell people is, yeah, I wish I could afford to give you a free guitar like
Right.
Fender Gibson can,
Right,
right?
right,
But I
right.
can't.
Right, right.
So yeah,
Well, they should appreciate that because they
yeah,
know
yeah,
you're practically a one man shop, and you're
hmm
making each piece one at a time by hand.
yeah,
You're not a whole factory pumping them out
yeah,
with a
yeah,
stencil.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You put a lot of care and a lot of time
Sure.
into each one. So in
Well,
your
now,
mind
yeah,
today,
hmm
out of guitar players who are still actively,
hmm
playing, who do you feel are your like top two guitar players? Let's say really well known
sure,
in the
yeah.
music industry.
Gosh, that's a tough one because there's so many out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that are popping up on TikTok and
Oh yeah,
Instagram that are
TikTok
just
has
like,
changed the music industry completely.
yeah,
I
like
mean,
just
completely.
amazing players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen
um,
two or three that are just so fantastic.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
really fantastic. And whenever I see another one that's sort of like them, I tag them and I say, look
hmm
at this, guy or this gal, because they're really something special, just like they are.
Yeah.
You could tell they play effortlessly and they play anything.
hmm
No, they on TikTok, they play the usual things. Pink
Sure. Yeah.
Floyd, Led Zeppelin, all those
Yeah.
usual things that people know because people are watching and they want more views. So if you play
Yeah.
Comfortably Numb,
Yeah.
they know right away, oh, I got to watch this whole guitar solo because it's one of the most, amazing ones ever in
hmm
rock and roll because it's Pink Floyd and they're redoing it and they just get it spot on.
hmm
Who do you feel? I mean, Prince was an amazing guitar player.
Oh gosh, yeah. He was an incredible guitar
Yeah.
player.
And also to me now, like John Mayer, the guy is
hmm
just, sometimes he goes on Instagram just playing
hmm
around.
hmm
He's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. He's got a great sense of humor, and I think sometimes folks kind of don't get that, he's kind of messing around some of the,
Right. Right.
most
He
of the
seems like he's got
time.
like
Yeah.
like a dry sense of humor.
Yeah, he's got a dry sense. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah. That's what he
It's
seems
yeah,
like.
yeah. He's a good one. I think.
He did this show on YouTube. I just happened to see it. It was quite a while ago where Alicia Keys was performing in Times Square one summer. This is pre-pandemic.
Sure. Yeah.
And she was doing one of her songs. And then he came out. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I think she was doing one of her songs. Then he came out, was playing guitar, her song, and then it morphed into one of his songs. And then he sang.
Yeah.
But the guitar playing was just phenomenal. He was the guitar player.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, as far as two guitar players, let's see here. I'm looking on my Instagram real quick so I can remember the one guy's name that is really incredible because he plays banjo really. And but what came up before then, one of the guitar players that's really just incredible is Molly Tuttle.
I don't know the name, but I'll have to
She
look her up.
yeah, she plays a lot of bluegrass
Uh-huh.
type stuff, and it's just, gosh, like, it's incredible. And I used to hang out with a bunch of bluegrass guys in South Carolina, and that's where I picked up, just because they always like to play music and then kind of give little history lessons about, the guitar or
Sure.
certain players or certain bluegrass songs and where they came from and all this stuff. And one of the things that my buddy Phil would always talk about is when he played the banjo, he would do this claw hammer technique, right? That not a lot of people at that time were doing much of anymore. I think now there's a little bit of a renaissance of that. And Molly Tuttle is one of those people that she'll play the guitar entirely with fingers. Rarely will you ever see a pick in her hand, and she's very fast, very accurate, very, very just amazing sounds. And so she's a really good flat picker. Puts a lot of men in her same genre, like completely blows them out of the water. And
you know who's a very good banjo player? I don't know if you would know, but Steve Martin, the comic.
Yes, he is. He's incredible.
He's an amazing banjo player.
Yes,
a lot of people don't know that about him.
Yeah,
they see him comedy, Saturday Night Live from years ago, movies, but he's a great banjo player.
Oh yeah. Well, and he I want to say that recently I saw that he did oh, he toured with somebody, or he played a show or with oh man, I'm gonna have to look that up, because I recently there was something
Mhm.
where he did a concert with some well-known folks.
Do you have a new finished guitar that you could show here?
I don't know at the moment. I have this old prototypical guitar, like I said, that was very much inspired by a
But
Stratocaster.
that's the one that you made. That's one of your guitars.
Yes, very long ago, and of
Right,
course
right.
some of the paint's
Yeah,
chipping
sure.
off
From
because
playing,
yeah, it has gotten used, and I've
it looks
lent it
better
out to
that way.
friends, and yeah, it sure does. It's a lot thinner than a regular Stratocaster, which
Right.
is something that I'm going to, when I do a finally fully realized version of
Hmm.
this
And
eventually.
where on that guitar does it show the company name? On the
Oh,
back, on
right
the
here
front?
on the headstock, right there.
Oh, I see right there.
Yeah, right there. It looks backwards. That's the old
Like a
logo.
signature. It's like a
Yeah.
signature.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The new logo is a little bit different. Just
Hmm.
kind of a, now that I'm in a different place back in my
Right.
hometown, I
So how
decided
many
to
years are you back now in
change it.
Texas?
I've been back since the fall of 2018.
Oh, so if you're back a few years already. So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
where do you see, now that you're a few years in Texas, you plan on staying there now for a while?
Yeah, for a good long while.
Right.
I don't plan on moving anytime
Hmm.
soon. We
And
just
where do you see this business going now into the future? Besides selling more guitars, of course, that's what you want to
sure,
do.
yeah.
But you see other products,
Hmm.
other expansions, how, getting your name out there. Besides being on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I don't know. That's something that I do think about a lot. And when I was a little bit younger, of course, when you're younger, you kind of have more of this like take over the world mentality, and there's a lot of pressure, right, to like leave your mark on the world and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I feel like I've calmed down a lot since then. Whether it's through circumstance or tragedy, or just gaining wisdom and all that stuff. And so I think for everybody, each person has to find their own balance and find what they really want to do. And I could see one of two things, right? At the rate I'm going now, um, I can continue doing what I'm doing, and I want to find a healthy balance between home life and making guitars and all that stuff. I know that growth, which was happening in South Carolina, the growth was great, but I didn't. Um, I don't know what's the saying, right? More money, more problems, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Or to a degree, because I just didn't know how to handle that stuff. So now,
Notorious BIG.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know, finding the balance. Like obviously, I want to find a place where I'm comfortable and my family's comfortable, and that comes with a lot of work. But I don't see that happening unless there's a strategic partnership at some
Hmm.
point in time, because I'm so, I struggle with my own mental health and ADHD and all that stuff, and so that, when there's a lot of um, when there's a lot of folks in the kitchen, so to speak, when it comes to business, that's or no, what is it? There's another term for that, right? A lot of plates in the air, whatever.
Hmm.
Then I get
Too
stressed out.
too many bosses.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily bosses, but too many things, right?
Right,
Like too
right,
many too many things going on. I've got to be able to create, right?
right.
So it would have to be, in order to grow, it would have to be a strategic partnership where
Hmm.
someone could handle the business side
Right,
while I
right,
handle the creative side, and that'd be the
right.
perfect mix.
Well, what's
And
good is that you know what your strengths are.
yeah.
So what I hear is that you really need a partner, because
Yeah,
you could do the
exactly.
building and you could make the guitars and you know how to make them sound great and how they should look. And then you need
Yeah.
someone to say, okay, here's what we're going to sell. This is what the customers are asking for. This is how we're going to
Yeah.
sell it.
Yeah.
And that would be the other half of the
Yeah.
business, because my grandfather
Exactly.
always said, you only need a partner. I'm trying to remember his exact words, but you only need a partner if you need their expertise
Hmm.
or you need their money.
Yeah,
If you don't need one
exactly.
of those, you don't need a partner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
And yeah, so that's kind of where I see myself. Otherwise, at the rate I'm going, I think it's a good, I don't know, I'm in a good place now
mhm,
as far as if I stay at the
right.
number of guitars. And obviously I never want to make more guitars than there's demand for.
Yeah, well, you're
Right.
building, you already said you're booked until through next year.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
2022 just started,
yeah.
and you're only
Yeah,
one
and
person. How many guitars could you possibly make?
exactly.
You
Yeah.
can only
So
make a finite amount in a day
yeah,
or a week.
yeah. So to make more, obviously, I'd have to, that's where a
Well,
partner
you
would
need
have
more
to come
people,
in because then I'd need more people
right?
and
And you don't
yeah,
want to sacrifice the quality.
yeah,
You don't want to
exactly.
farm it
So
out to some factory someplace and just stamping your name.
yeah,
Every
yeah,
5 seconds, up another Bat Ferguson guitar, another BA Ferguson guitar.
yeah, yeah,
You don't want to
exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
want to be doing that because then you lose your
yeah.
credibility.
hmm
So
and I know right now, if there was a chance that I could, make all these guitars that are booked out for a year, if I could get them out sooner, then more orders would also come in sooner because now there's more product making it out there. Because I have had some people that backed out of buying one because it was going to be a year before they got it, and so
yeah, a year is a
now,
long
yeah,
time to wait for something.
sure, yeah, yeah.
A year is a
Thankfully,
long
there
time.
are plenty of people willing to wait, and I'm really thankful for them.
Yeah, well, if people are
Um,
finding you and they know they're
yeah,
obviously they know your product because they're
hmm
finding you somehow and they know your
yeah,
product.
yeah,
And if they have another guitar to play,
hmm
and you say, look, and obviously if you say, look, I'm so busy, I'm backed up for a year, but you could place the order now. I guess they leave a
yeah,
deposit of some kind.
yes, yes. When they
You,
order, yeah,
they leave a deposit
hmm
and you say, but it's going to be delivery date around this time. And then you
hmm
have to really leave it up to them. There's not much you can do because you're not
yeah,
going to, same thing happens in other businesses sometimes. If it's something
yeah,
you're really in demand, if you're booked out a year, you have a
yeah,
real big demand.
yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
how many pieces that is, but and you're one person making guitars, but you really have built up a nice demand, right?
hmm Yeah,
And
yeah,
look, if you want to wait, we'll make it for you. You'll get it, no
yeah,
problem. But you
exactly.
just have
Yeah,
to wait the time because we have orders in front of you.
yeah,
That's all. I bet
yeah.
you the majority of the people say, "Okay, I'll wait."
Yeah, yeah, the majority of people have said that, and it's really
Yeah,
refreshing,
right.
because of course my own imposter syndrome goes, no one's going to want to wait, and then everyone
Well,
just keeps saying, no, I'm fine with it, as long as you communicate,
of course,
that's
right,
that's the yeah,
right. We're making the
yeah,
neck. We're making this.
hmm
We're doing different stages. We're starting your production now.
yeah, yeah,
Here's a
exactly.
photo. We just did this sanding. Take a look how it's coming out. Those are all
Yeah,
good things to keep in touch. Keep in touch with the customer.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what social media is great for too,
Yeah,
is
sure.
constantly showing the process,
Right. Well, that's how we found each
yeah,
other quite a few years ago.
yeah,
You were looking at New York
exactly.
City. I was talking about suits, and
hmm
you were looking at New
Yep.
York City, and
Yeah.
I saw what
And
you
I
do, and I was
love your
watching.
suits. Like, yeah, you're talking about the Casualana, right? The
The cash line is
Casualana. Yeah.
something new for
Yeah.
me in the last year or so.
Yeah.
So that's been a
Yeah.
good one because of the price point.
Yeah.
Beautiful suit, wool with a little microfiber. Feels like wool and cashmere.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
strong material. You could wear it every day.
Yeah.
Comes in a few nice colors, and
Yeah.
the price is amazing. So
Exactly.
that's what it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
for. It was really made for someone who, doesn't maybe have a lot of suits, just wants to buy one
Mhm.
or two and keep them in the closet just to have a nice one hanging around if they need it, or does a lot of
Exactly.
traveling. That was the thing too.
Yeah.
Business
hmm
travelers who need to fold it up and,
hmm
not worry about wrinkling and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can
Exactly.
people find you on social media?
Sure. You can go to baferguson.com. You can find me on
Mhm.
Instagram, BA Ferguson Guitars, YouTube, BA Ferguson Guitars, Facebook, Twitter. And TikTok as well.
Right.
I don't use it as often as I should.
TikTok is the one you should really start to
Yeah.
concentrate.
hmm
Just go on
Yeah.
there and play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
Exactly.
and then
Or
you
just show the process, right? I always
show
get
it.
hung up on the music. That's the one thing and I realize now on TikTok, it really doesn't matter if you put music to stuff, as long as you're just doing stuff.
Yeah, but
Then that's,
you
yeah.
could pick something interesting. You can
Well,
put your
yeah.
own music. You can play your own thing and use it as the background. You don't have to pick their
Yeah, you
music
could.
really.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah, exactly.
algorithm, I think the way their algorithm works is if you pick the popular music, like the top 10,
That's right. Yeah.
more people are it's gonna get pushed out
Okay.
to more people. But, I've seen other people that make things on Instagram, and there's a lot of small clips, close-ups, and sometimes they just use what, it's even more interesting for your business, if I could tell you.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of sound when it comes to making a guitar. It's not a silent thing. Like sewing a suit, there's not a lot of noise. It's like a thread going through. What is that? Nothing.
Yeah.
But
that
you have the grinding, you have
too,
the sanding, you have the drilling. Use that background, use the original sound. Don't put any music. People like to hear the plane going, hear the sanding, see the dust, do a lot of close-ups, and make all these little clips, and make all these little clips one TikTok.
Yeah.
And then you could do another TikTok of, hey, I just finished the guitar, it's all done, here's how it sounds, and then you play a song with it.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So I think that would work out well for you.
I think it would. Yeah. And that's where, I would get hung up, right? Is the idea of like, well, the music and but then some of the music that you have on there, it's not like on Instagram where you can really, pick, like if you want to hear Eric Clapton, you can pick an Eric Clapton song to
You could do that on TikTok. You could do it.
Really?
Yeah, you could browse any music you want.
Okay.
You just browse and type in Eric Clapton, a bunch of his songs will come out. Look, you have teenagers in the house. They're all on TikTok.
Yeah. Well, I only have one of them. Yeah.
Get her with her phone and say, hey, I want to make some TikToks, and let her do it. Let her do the whole thing. You don't even get involved. Just say, you're my new social media manager of BA Ferguson Guitars.
Right.
You run the TikTok.
Yeah.
I'll do Instagram. You run TikTok, and then just let her do it. Go in the shop, take pictures of you doing the work, add music. That's what I would do. I would just say, hey, go ahead. 16, you said she is 17?
16, yeah.
16, that's it. You're the head of the TikTok department.
That's her job now, yeah.
That's it.
Oh, man.
Give her a chair in the shop with like a little desk and say, here's your office.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to, oh, man. I'm going to.
She'll love it. I'm sure she'll love it.
Mark my words, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try.
Do it. Do it. I think it'll be great.
Yeah. And then later on, I can tell the story. This was Phil Pravda's idea.
Right. And if the TikTok works out well, you say, okay, now you have to do TikTok and you got to do my Instagram.
Yeah, there you go.
And you'll concentrate on making the guitars.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, the more time I can spend off the phone, better. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, this came out. This was great. It was great talking to you about what you do, about your guitars. I think you're doing a fantastic job with your products. I've seen them online. I've seen you make them in Periscopes and on Instagram. And look, I think it's really a really good American story, American dream story.
Wow, thanks.
A little struggle in the beginning, you built it up. You got orders all through next year.
Yeah.
And I think it's really great. And I hope everybody who's listening to this and watching this podcast rewinds a little bit and then finds Boot on Instagram, on his website, and orders a guitar.
Yes, please do.
That's right. Please do. All right. Awesome. So keep in touch, and thanks again for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm Phil Pravda from suitcafe.com, and this is another new episode of It's All Been Done Before. And thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Take it easy, Boot. I'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.
Okay.